Auditing data in Dynamics CRM. Here's the basics. The CRM auditing function provides a log of any changes made to CRM data. The changes to individual records are stored in an audit history, which is accessible via the entity form for a record. All audit events are in the audit summary, which is accessible from Settings and Auditing. Auditing does not track CRM access or the reading of records. The information is actually stored in Audit Partitions table in the organizational database. SQL Enterprise allows partitions to be spread over logical storage devices, and CRM can configure and recognize this. Be aware that auditing can impact the system's performance. It's going to cause an increase in I/O to write the log, so consider whether or not auditing is necessary rather than using an all or nothing approach. Auditing and security implications. The CRM admin and system customizer have full authority by default. They can enable and disable auditing for the organization, configure entity and attribute auditing options, manage audit partitions, review the audit summary, and review audit history. Managers can see audit history by default, but more access can be granted via security roles. Also, less access. Non-managers do not have access to audit information by default, but again, you can update or create security roles to grant this. To enable auditing in CRM, you have to turn it on because it's not audited by default. Only the CRM admin and system customizer can enable the function. And enabling is a three-step process. First, you must enable it for the entire organization. Then you can enable it and disable it for specific entities or entity groups, such as sales or marketing. And then finally, you can enable and disable auditing for individual fields or attributes. So let's take a look at how this is accomplished. Auditing is accessed via the Settings and Auditing menus. You start off by going to the Global Audit Settings, and you can turn on auditing by clicking Start Auditing. And now you can also audit user access. You can enable auditing in the following areas: common entities, sales entities, marketing entities, and customer service entities. But you can also do this auditing specifically for an individual entity and field. So in this particular case, let's go ahead and turn on auditing for common entities and click OK. Now we'll go back and review the settings and see how the functions have changed. You'll notice now that the pop-up box shows that all of these entities have now been enabled. I can go down and review which ones are enabled and disabled by hovering over the boxes, like so. I can also get to my entity and field audit settings by clicking on this link here. All this does is bring up the customization interface on the default solution, allowing me to go into specific entities and fields, such as the credit limit, and enable or disable auditing. So this field was enabled by default, but auditing wouldn't take place until I turned it on for the organization and then turn it on for common entities, which I did before. If I wanted to disable auditing on this particular field, I simply click Disable, Save and Close, and as always, Publish. The audit summary view allows the administrator to take a look at individual records without having to drill down into a specific entity. So depending upon whether or not you're looking for system level changes or changes to a specific entity determines on where you might go. So in this particular case, I can go and take a look at what's going on in this particular record. And basically it's showing that I was the one who enabled auditing and the date and time it was done. So it gives you a lot of information about what's going on in the system, not just at the record level, but also at the system level. Now I can also go into the sales and take a look at accounts, open an account, and by clicking on the upper menu, I can go take a look at the auditing history for this record in the account. So at this point, you can see that on the 21st, I disabled audit on these records, and there haven't been any changes made. But if I go back and I make a change, for instance, to the ticker symbol, and click Save, now let's see if there's some audit history that's been created. And now we can see that the ticker symbol has been updated, the old value was blank, and the new value is 2020. So this gives me a very good way of going back and finding out who made a change. And this is very helpful when you're trying to track down issues that are coming from users that are saying, oh, I didn't make a change, but there's changes that are happening and it's a repeat problem. You can start identifying what's going on. It might turn out that there's a workflow that's running that's making changes that the user is completely unaware of and that they're correct. So that's how we get to the data within auditing. Now we'll go back down to the settings and auditing menu, and finally look at audit log management. On a quarterly basis, a new log will be created, and we can only get rid of the oldest log. So in this particular case, there's no way to delete this log because it's in use. However, a few days ago, I came in and deleted all the logs when I turned off auditing prior to being able to do this demo. Auditing data is stored in partitions. The partitions are automatically organized by CRM into calendar quarters, and CRM does create a new partition for a quarter automatically. The oldest partitions can be deleted if no longer needed, but you can't delete one from the middle. You can only delete the oldest partition. Once a partition is deleted, it cannot be recovered without a backup. Managing an audit log. In my previous demo, I didn't have any data to show you, so I have a screenshot here to try and illustrate it for you a little bit better. So here's an example of all of the logs that were here at one point, and I could delete this first one by highlighting it and then clicking the delete log button. I could continue deleting it down, but I cannot delete the last one, nor can I delete any log in the middle of the string. Each log is dependent upon the log in front of it, and you'll see that the very first one doesn't tell you when it's available because there is no previous log that it can identify when it began. But you'll notice that because this one does have a to date, that it matches almost identically to the from date of the next log in sequence. It's a good idea never to delete all of the logs except for the current one. Always leave at least one more because that'll give you more of a basis to be able to analyze the data. And sometimes you need the previous logs to be able to identify what the values were.